Before we begin, we'll read Hosea chapter 4 verse 6. And when I came across these words, I used to always ponder the meaning of these words. So let's keep these words in mind as we go through this. I'll read them in the Hebrew. It says, Nidmu, Ami, Midbali, Hadat, Ki, Ata, Hadat, Ve'asta, Ve'emaseka, Mikahin, Li, Vatishka, Torah, Eloheka, Eska, Beneka, Gem, Ani. Now, before we break this down, just remember Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7. It says, the fear of Jehovah is the beginning of knowledge, and fools despise wisdom and instruction. So let's understand the meaning of this. It says, Nidmu Ami. This is translated, my people are destroyed. And that word there, dama, means to cease, to cause to cease, to cut off or destroy. And we read why. It says, Mivli Hadad, because for lack of knowledge. And that word there, beli, means a wearing out, to become old, to wear out, and has the idea of you growing old, that you do not learn wisdom, you do not get knowledge, and you do not understanding. And we're told that this knowledge and understanding comes from the fear of the Creator. Now, isn't that quite amazing? Now, it says, because you have this word, rejected knowledge. So, in other words, you have not accepted or went after the knowledge of Elohim. Now, there is this wrong knowledge that has been in this world, and it has destroyed mankind. And this knowledge has come from the serpent. But you see that this knowledge that comes from the Creator protects and it gives life to the full. Just take John chapter 10 verse 10. It says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And it says, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. Now also he says, and this word, and I'll reject from being, this word, priest for me. So in other words, he's going to reject you also from being a priest for him. And a priest is somebody who enters into the heavenly realm, to the sanctuary, to the eternal place, to be in the presence of the Most High. And he also, he says here, and because you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim. And remember that the Torah was the instruction, the way you were to live upon the earth. And then he says, this here is, will forget your children also. In other words, I will also forget your children. So you see, man has forgotten the way he was to live upon the earth, and he has forgotten his Sabbaths, and has not kept his ordinances and his decrees. Greetings, brothers and sisters. Allow me to provide a quick introduction to this video, which we'll be concluding on this second beast, which is also this final beast that was foretold to rule at the end of time, at the end of this age, the age of Pisces. Finally, there will be judgment, justice, and mercy to those who have waited. I will review these amazing prophecies concerning this mystery Babylon and the demise of the beast kingdoms. And moreover, you will see that these two horns, which represent Britain and America, would give power onto this first beast, which we saw was the Papacy. There would also be the forces that would implement the mark of the beast. You will also discover who this man that is referred to in this prophecy in Revelations 13 verse 18 as having the number 666. Then I will reveal what this mark of the beast is really all about, and what is this catalyst that causes all, both rich and poor, free and slave, to receive this mark. And then finally you will discover the real meaning of what it means to receive this mark in your forehead or your hand. Before we begin, let's have a quick overview of these prophecies. Now, I've covered these in detail in other videos. You may want to watch them to get further insights into this. Now, these are truly spectacular prophecies because they embody a plan that is difficult to comprehend, but really declares the solemn power of the Word and the wisdom of Elohim. Now, as I previously mentioned, this is the fulfillment of a prophecy that stems way back to the very beginning. Now, in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, it says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed, the serpent, and her seed, Zion. He shall bruise your head, Yeshua, and you, Satan, shall bruise his heel. See, hidden in this prophecy that spans across millennia, a battle between heavenly and earthly beings. And we're speaking about the fallen angels here. And this battle has continued, and it is ensued to the end of time. But you see, the Creator has already foretold the end from the beginning. Now, just consider in Daniel chapter 2, verse 28. You see, Daniel understood that there was an Elohim in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown to King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Now remember, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. The Creator has foretold mankind within His word of truth, and the fallen angels with precision the course of this history, which would involve nations, peoples, multitudes, across different continents, oceans, spanning millennia. Now this course is the course of this world, which would accumulate at the end of this age, Pisces, which is the 12th sign, representing the end of time. Now there are many mysteries in His word, and this mystery has to do with the fate and the demise of Babylon, and those kingdoms which are symbolized as beasts. Now, if you observe, we spoke about this dream of Nebuchadnezzar and this head of gold, and this head represents the ruler, and this is referring to Satan. And these kingdoms are Satan's kingdoms. And we are told that these kingdoms were going to be divided and given to other people. And meaning that the kingdoms were going to be divided. But over time, they were going to become corrupt and defiled. And this is also the wisdom of Elohim. Now, the Creator says at the time of those kings that He would set up an eternal kingdom. And this stone that was representing the Messiah was going to crush these feet and destroy these kingdoms. And this is exactly what is going to occur. And also Daniel was given these visions of beasts, and these beasts also corresponded to these degradation in these kingdoms, but they also symbolize attributes and symbolic elements of those kingdoms also. We saw that. And in the time of those kingdoms, there was even this amazing prophecy, which is known as the Daniel 70-week prophecy, and they're sabbatical years. And this is all about the Messiah, that He would be born in this sabbatical period of time, and His kingdom would bring an end to the beast kingdoms. And what we'll see, and if you observe, is that these prophecies run the whole way through, right until the end of time. And that's what's amazing. Now, when Jehovah gave these revelations to Yeshua, who delivered them through His angel to Yochanan. And Yochanan had seen all the prophecies that were being fulfilled by Daniel. And we get a lot of more deeper revelation about these specific prophecies as well, because at the time of Yochanan, he had actually seen that 5 of these kingdoms was fallen. And it really started with Egypt. And then we had Assyria. And this is when the time of Babylon, this kingdom, which was represented with a lion with eagle wings, right? So keep that in mind, because that's quite important. And then the prophecies continue. And John, at the time of John, when the Yeshua's kingdom was set up, Rome was the ruling power at the time. And Rome is symbolized as iron, but also an eagle. So that's important to understand. And then we had this first the little horn that Daniel was shown, right? So this was going to be the first beast. And I demonstrated and shown you from the word of truth that this is referring to the papacy. And we also see at that time that Rome was divided up into a divided kingdom. Now this eighth head, which is the final beast, or the second beast to Yochanan, he was shown that this would be the ruling power, these kingdoms, which is the eighth head, which is the final beast, right? That would be ruling at the end of time. And we were told that this beast would be the ones that enforce the mark of the beast. Now consider that these two horns represent, now the head of the beast, I think it's important to consider that the symbol of Babylon, and this head here, the ruler, is the one who rules the kingdom, and is symbolic. And that Babylon was represented by a lion with eagle wings. And we see that these two horns, right, would be the final head of the beast. And they're all, remember, the beast is always about Satan's dominions, his kingdoms over these 7 world empires, and why these kingdoms would be degraded and to become defiled and corrupted over time. And we see now that this mixing of this iron and clay is a divided kingdom, just as foretold, and a kingdom that will never be united, but always divided, because they will never agree in principle to anything. But it would also become extremely corrupted and defiled, and this is exactly what is occurring at the end of time, ahead of time, just as foretold by the wisdom of Elohim. Now, we see that these two horns, which represent Britain and America, right, they're symbols, right? If you look at Britain, was the lion, and it was plucked, and it stood on its 2 feet, and it formed the eagle, and the eagle represents America. Now, America will be the head of the beast, because it's the eagle. And it is this very power that has been at work during these times. And we're also told that they were like a lamb, meaning that they had characteristics of a priestly kingdom. And we see that this religious system, which is this Roman Babylonian worship system, is all about Babylon. And this is why it's referred to as a lamb-like kingdom, because you see it's got no resemblance whatsoever to Yeshua's kingdom, because Yeshua's kingdom is not of this world. And also, his kingdom is within the minds of the people. So you see the Creator and Yeshua, and you see he has been developing or building his kingdom within the minds of the people. So we see that this other kingdom here, this other lamb-like power kingdom, has got nothing to do with the Creator's kingdom or Yeshua's kingdom. It's all to do with the beast. But you see, it spoke like a dragon, right? Meaning that they are liars and deceivers. And what do they do? Well, they deceive those who dwell on the earth. And that's exactly what has occurred. Now, that's quite amazing. Now, you see, the Creator foreknew all things in advance, and has already declared within his word of truth. And we're also told in the book of Revelations that she is referred to as Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. So you see, it was Babylon who introduced idol worship. And we see that this same principle has flowed all the way down through these kingdoms, even into Rome. But it's always been Babylonian idolatry. And it was Babylon who destroyed Zion in the beginning. So you see, it is also Babylon who has destroyed the people in the end and deceived them. But really, it is Satan's kingdoms, which is really quite amazing. Now, also, we're told that this final power, right, would rule over the kingdoms of the earth. And we see that that is the case. America rules over the kingdoms of the earth because it is the home of the United Nations, New York City. And also, we see that it has an image of the beast also, which I refer to as the Statue of Liberty. And we see that the Statue of Liberty is really a Babylonian image. And on our head, we're told there are 7 diadems, and they represent the 7 oceans, 7 continents, and 7 seas. Now let's talk about this man that has this number 666, and who is the one that is referred to in this prophecy. Now, understanding the context of this prophecy is important, as it pertains to this fourth beast, which we see is Rome. Now we see at the time of Yochanan, when he was given these mysteries, Rome had not been yet divided into 10 kingdoms. And we saw this took place around the year, from the years 351 to 476 AD. And we see that at the time of these 10 kingdoms, that this first beast, which we see is the seventh head of this same Babylonian system, would arise. And this is speaking of the office of the papacy and the popes. Then we see the prophecy foretold that this first beast would receive a deadly wound. Now this occurred in 1798 by the French army under Berthier, who put the Pope under house arrest as a prisoner. And this is the deadly wound that the papacy received. Now the prophecy then foretold that this second beast would arise, and we see that these two horns representing America and Britain would eventually give power onto this first beast, the papacy. Meaning that this papacy would regain her power and status in world affairs again, despite the despicable things that have been perpetrated in her in the past. Now remember that this prophecy is speaking both about this first and this second beast spoken of in Revelation 13. Now the second beast being the eighth head of Babylon, we also see that those two horns were like a lamb, and they give power onto this first beast, which we are referring to as the papacy. Now the creator was very specific about this power and gave us some very identifiable characteristics, such as blasphemous names and titles, and speaks against the Most High. In her is found the blood of the saints. She's massacred millions of those who have kept the truth. She changes the Creator's 10 commandments, swaps Sabbath day for the Sunday, changes the times and seasons. So there are just some examples, and there can be no doubt that these statements are directly about the popes. Now we can see that both America and Britannia, the Roman name for the United Kingdom, have continued and promoted this false Babylonian religious system of idol worship. Yes, this is the same Queen of Heaven spoken of in Jeremiah 44 verse 17. Now we also see that she's referred to as Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. Now what is a harlot? Well, a harlot is someone who's willing to sell themselves, to give up their morals and principles for material gain, sell their souls for pleasure and fame. Now there is a reason that the Creator compares Israel to an adulterous woman and Babylon to the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Now consider, it is commonly understood that Mesopotamia is the cradle of Western civilization. Now the word Mesopotamia is formed from two ancient words, meso meaning between or the middle of, and potamos meaning river. Now interestingly, this is symbolizing the earthly Eden, and the 4 rivers that came out from there symbolizing birth of nations. Now notice it referred to the cradle. Now a cradle is a baby's bed or cot, and of course the mother in this case is Babylon, because society has emanated the behavior of this queen who has produced adulterous nations that have rejected the Creator's ways and embraced Babylon's. Now the Creator, through his infinite wisdom, has already foretold the destruction of Babylon and these beast kingdoms of Satan. Now Isaiah 47:5 also speaks of this. It says, "Sit in silence, go into darkness, queen city of the Babylonians. No more will you be called queen of kingdoms." Because you see, Babylon gave birth to kingdoms. We see that Babylon, the queen of kingdoms, would become corrupted and defiled over time. Now this was symbolized by the image that Nebuchadnezzar received of Babylon. The head of gold represents royalty, and it represents this ruler, and this being Satan and his beast kingdoms. We are shown by the wisdom of Elohim that these kingdoms would become more and more corrupted and defiled over time. And this was symbolized by the different metals that made up the image, such as the silver is of more value than brass, and brass, of course, has more value than iron, and of course, iron has more value than clay. But you see that the kingdom would become very divided and mixed and not united in the end. And this is exactly what has occurred. Now, what's truly amazing is the Creator said He has measured everything by measure, number, and weight. Everything has a number. Just like Babylon was given a measurement. When King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, it was 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. And he set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. That's spoken of in Daniel chapter 3 verse 1. So the image was 60 cubits long, 6 cubits wide, and there were 6 instruments. And they were to be played at designated times of its worship. Now we have this infamous number 666, and it has to do with Babylon. And it has to do with the ruler, who we know is Satan. Now, for those who understand that many who are in the music industry, who have said they have sold their souls to Satan for fame and fortune, will consider that America, the head of the beast, as foretold by the wisdom of Elohim, is also the home of the music industry, along with Britain. And who can argue with the influence of music in this world and the power of it? Now, also confirming the words of truth and what was foretold of Babylon, you see all this corresponds to the image of the beast that will be worshipped in Revelations chapter 13. And it's this infamous number 666, which is the number of the beast and also the name of the man. Now, this is why this prophecy says that these two horns, leading nations, are like a lamb. Basically meaning they resemble the Messiah's kingdom. But they spoke like a dragon, meaning they were liars and deceivers. And no wonder, for the serpent is behind these kingdoms, and we are told that he is the father of lies. Now also, Yeshua's kingdom was to be established within the hearts and the minds of the people. His people are to be separated from this false and corrupt system that has been governing since the times of the Messiah. Now the prophecy is speaking of these two leading nations, America and Britain. We can see that in recent years that these nations, as the prophecy foretold, would give power unto this first beast, which is the Papacy. And who can argue the role that both America and Britain have played in giving power unto the Papacy? Not only have they perpetrated and continued with this false Babylonian worship system, but they have tolerated it. Now, you consider that if we take the United Kingdom, they're basically in the 1980s, when Pope John Paul II visited the UK, they established full relationships again with the Vatican, and they have exchanged ambassadors between both the UK and the Holy See. And we see likewise in the 1980s, America has also established diplomatic relationships with the Vatican. And let's not forget that the United States has maintained consular relations with the Papal States from the 1700s under President George Washington and Pope Pius VI. Now also we see that the Holy See is a state party to numerous multilateral treaties. And also in 2004, the United Nations General Assembly confirmed the Holy See's status as a permanent observer. In other words, the Vatican gets to play a very important role in the decision making of how this earth is run, and has power to influence certain matters. At the time of the writing of these prophecies and revelations that our brother Yochanan was given, we see they were about the past, the present, and the future. Now the Creator has shown us ahead of time, for His wisdom, that this is all related to this fourth beast, which is Rome. And by his word of truth, we can see that the continuity of these prophecies are very precise and profound, as proven true in our times. We're told to calculate the number of the beast in Revelations 13:18. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and that number is 666. When we consider what is important in context here at the time of Yochanan, is that we notice that he is always speaking about Rome and this power, this lamb-like power. And we see that this Vatican, or the popes, have maintained this Latin language to this very date. And this is how the number of the beast is calculated. And this is the language the Pope speaks to the assembly. We're also told the following, that he has blasphemous names. Now consider the meaning of the word Antichrist. It means in the place of, or against. Now we look at this name, one of the titles of the Pope, and we see that they have many titles. But this specific title, which is called Vicarius Filidae, and in the Latin numerals they all add up to a number, and it's this number 666. And what's amazing about this name means in the place of the Son of Elohim, i.e. the Antichrist. Now also, this Roman Church has many names that all add up to the number 666. Like for example, Italica Ecclesia, which is the Latin for the Italian Church or the Assembly. And we have the Vicarius Filidae and Dux Cleri, the head of the clergy, and so on. But you see, all roads lead to Rome. Also to point out that this title has been used for a very long time. For example, this is a page from the Catholics handwritten proof, and it's from 1943 by Dr. Johannes Costin of the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. wrote, the title Vicarius Filidae, as well as the title Vicarius Christi, is very common as the title of the Pope. And we see here the title and the year. So they might try to deny this, but in their own writings, it is a title that's been used for some time. And over here also we can see on the Sunday Visitors from November the 15th, 1914. We also have this title, Vicarius Filidae. Over here, from Richard Cunningham Shemal from 1803, wrote this in the book or Bible Chronology. And it is to be observed as a singular circumstance that this title, Vicarius Filidae, Vicar of the Son of Elohim, which the popes of Rome have assumed to themselves and caused to be inscribed over the door of the Vatican, exactly makes the number 666. And some other examples here. And also even the Jesuits, right? This is a Sunday Visitor, a Jesuit publication, published two admissions that the Vicarius Filidae is in fact a title for the Pope. And this was on November 15, 1914, and April the 18th, 1915. And the November the 15th, 1914 issue, as shown in the picture, tells us this. The title of the Pope of Rome is Vicarius Filidae. This is inscribed on these mitre, or the thing that they wear upon their head. And if they take the letters of the title, printed large, and add them together, they come to the number 666. So much evidence. And of course the word of Elohim says this precisely, that this is the number. Now also it's very important to understand the role the Pope is going to play in the mark of the beast. Here's a tweet from June 2020. He says, it is important to bring together scientific capabilities in a transparent and disinterested way in order to guarantee universal access to essential technologies that will enable every person in every part of the world to receive healthcare. Now, of course, healthcare is one of the key pillars of the mark of the beast, because it is through this mechanism that they will enforce the mark of the beast. And I'm talking about this mRNA nanobot technology connected to the 5G network. Now, it's interesting. It is centered around scientific capabilities and technology. Now, also, here's an article from 2014. A bold plan for the Pope Francis and Bill Gates to save the world. Now, that's interesting. I want to show you one of the key points here in this article. It says Bill and Melinda Gates are already committed, spending a fortune, changing the world. Pope Francis has the power base, their leadership skills, the authority to make things happen. And that's important because you see, it is the Pope that has the authority to make this decision, because he has been given the power by the serpent. Now also, here's an article from the World Economic Forum from the 13th of April in 2020. And Pope Francis says it might be the time to consider a universal basic wage. And this is another pillar of the fourth industrial revolution, which I'll go into detail. And also, the Pope calling for the resetting of the global economy in response to COVID-19. Now, interesting, all these articles are from the year 2020, which is when the mark of the beast is really being implemented. And of course, we see the Pope is behind the AI ethics backed by the Pope and tech giants in a new plan. You wonder why the Pope has been meeting with all these top execs, such as IBM and Microsoft. Because you see, the Pope said he's got the leadership, but he's also been given the power. And we see another article here in 2019, meeting with the heads of Microsoft to discuss artificial intelligence. Just showing you some examples. Another article here. Why are Apple and Google execs meeting with the Pope? Because you see, technology was the pillar stone for the implementation of a global system that allow everyone to buy and sell. Now, one of the key pillar stones of this mark of the beast is a global identity, a universal ID. And remember, that's what the Pope was saying about universal access, and all based on technology. And of course, healthcare is a pillar stone also. So if we look at the ID 2020 and the alliances, now remember, all this was put in place before the pandemic. And what these guys are talking about, and we see who's in the floor here, is obviously a plan that's being put in motion for some time. And it is all going to be linked to this 0606 cryptocurrency system using body activity data. So this is how they're going to allow the whole world to come together and have access to all these systems. But it's going to be through healthcare, i.e. the mRNA nanobot technology and the 5G network. We just had a look at patent WO 2020 060606 in Microsoft Patent, where it clearly talks about your body as identity and where cryptocurrency and big currency come into effect. And we will see that this is directly linked to a global digital ID, and that's ID 2020. And it's going to be based on your mRNA and your nanotechnology, and your body will be the identity. Also, understand that this number 666 is the measure and number of Babylon and its ruler Satan. Now let's observe that this number 666 is a signature of the beast, and it is a footprint. And when we start to dig a bit deeper, we can begin to see this. Now briefly about one of the goals of this mRNA and nanotechnology is to control your mind, your body, which is your DNA. And their agenda is literally to connect your mind to the fourth industrial revolution, the fourth beast. No pun intended. Now, let's consider that another that one of the key ingredients in this compound, which is this graphene oxide. Now, this is a material that is made of carbon atoms that are bonded together in a repeating pattern of hexagons. Now, in geometry, a hexagon is the number basically 6, and it is a 6-sided polygon. Now, also, this material that is made up is carbon, and it is a chemical element. And also its atomic number is the number 6. And carbon is made up of what? 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And herein we have this number 66 again. Now also this graphene is considered to be one of the strongest materials in the world. And it is very good for passing electrons, electricity, and also has a magnetic effect. Now these side effects match many eyewitness testimonies to the fact that they have already taken the mark of the beast. And here we have another compelling witness to the fact that this is the mark of the beast, and it cannot be denied. So it's all part of the plan, and we see who's one of the leaders here? The Pope. Let's talk about what the mark of the beast is really all about. And it has everything to do with Agenda 21/2030, and of course the 4th Industrial Revolution. And you'll discover the real purpose of COVID-19. And it really has to do with identity and biotechnology, connecting mankind to the image of the beast, which is really this artificial intelligence. Since the rise of this second beast, we've had many revolutions and advances in sciences and technology. Our first revolution we saw was in the years 1700s. So around 1784, we saw the introduction of steam, water, and mechanical production equipment. And then, not that there long after, maybe 100 years or more, we see the division of labor, electricity, and mass production of goods and services. And our world started to change dramatically as a result of these advancements and achievements. And it has really transformed the way we do things upon the earth. And then, in the time I was born, in the third revolution, we saw the introduction of electronic systems. We see information technology and automated production. And now we're in the 4th Industrial Revolution, which is really all about artificial intelligence, AI, robotics, full automation, nanotechnology, cyborgs, mind control, transhumanism, and of course the end of humanity. Now this 4th revolution has a profound implication for mankind and will utterly change about everything we have ever known in our lifetime. Now I've also wondered often what Matthew 24 verse 22 was speaking about. And it said, unless those days had been shortened, no flesh would have been saved. But because of the elect, those days will be shortened. Now notice it says no flesh would have been saved. Now this is speaking of our DNA, which is what this mRNA, CRISPR, gene editing is all about. The changing of the natural order and design of our bodies, which is the temple. Transforming the people from the image of Elohim into the image of the beast. Now what is extremely intriguing and amazing to me is that we see this pattern to do with this number 4. Symbolically, the number 4 signifies creation or completion and is used throughout the word of truth. Now consider carefully. Eden, the region defined as Mesopotamia, Babylon, has 4 rivers coming out from it. And Eden was where it all started. Man and the beginning of creation. And it's interesting because we see this water symbolizes, the rivers symbolize peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. So we have this division. And we're told in Revelation chapter 17 verse 15, it said, the water you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. So speaking of this region, but also speaking about this system of Babylon. Now, the Creator is truly amazing, and through His infinite wisdom, He has measured all things. And let's observe some examples of this number 4. We have 4 seasons. There are 4 elements: the earth, air, fire, and water. Now there are also 4 major cardinal points on earth, which are the north, south, east, and west. And of course, we have the 4 beasts, and we have the 4 gospels of truth. So you see, and there are also these 4 horses in Revelations, and then there are the 4 angels who will be allowed to empty the 4 winds upon the world to destroy the wicked. So you see, the Creator knows all things, and things had to occur the way they did in order for righteous judgment to be brought about. And now we see at the end of time we have this 4th revolution, which is the final stage of human development. And unfortunately, it has serious implications and repercussions. When you really understand what the 4th Industrial Revolution is all about, we see it is the end of humanity. Now, understanding the signs and the times is vital. We are at that time of the end, signified as the age of Pisces, the 12th sign. The exact time foretold by the Creator to bring about an end to these beast kingdoms of Satan. Now we know that Satan knows his time is short, meaning Satan knows that his time is up, and he is going to take as many people as he can with him. We're told this in Revelations 12, chapter 12, verse 12. Interesting. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that his time is short. And that is the key to understanding the time, is that there is an end to this world. There is an end to all things. So if you observe carefully, you'll see that the signs of the end are everywhere in the earth and should be obvious by now. But many of these signs have been guised as global warming, and this is another lie of Satan to deceive those who reject truth. We see the rise of nations against nation, civil unrest, rumors of wars, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions everywhere, sinkholes, floodings, and disasters. Signs in the heavens such as meteorite showers, blood moons, and so on, even trumpet sounds. Now also we are seeing a repeat of those things that occurred in the days of Noah. Changing of kinds, corruption, and the defilement of mankind. We are told that the heart of man was continually evil. The sad thing was that only one man was saved in those days along with his family. Now, as the word of truth has foretold, we see that these 2 horns leading nations, America and Britain, along with Israel, who rise to peace, give power unto this first beast, which we saw was the Papacy. And these are the very powers that the word of truth foretold would be behind the mark of the beast. Now let's look at more collaboration with these powers and remember that it is the serpent who is working through mankind to bring about the mark of the beast, which is complete and utter enslavement of every man, woman, and child. Now also, keep in mind that the mark of the beast is a seal of ownership, that you are an animal and a slave. Now let's look at an article from June 26, 2014, and it's titled "A Bold Plan for Pope Francis, Bill Gates to Save the World." And I just want to draw your attention to a couple of paragraphs in this particular article, and it's really about this collaboration that is occurring at a global level. And we see that Bill and Melinda Gates are already committed spending a fortune changing the world. And I want you to observe, why is really Bill Gates spending a fortune on? Well, it is on this mRNA, genetically modifying humans. He wants to control the birth and populations. And it's really through this merger of bio and technology. And this is all a part of the fourth industrial revolution. So you see, this is how he is actually committed to changing the world. And we'll see in a moment what these driving forces are that are actually bringing about these transformations upon the earth at the moment. Now, also it says Pope Francis has the power, the leadership skills, the authority to make things happen. Now, the reason for this is it is very clear. You see, these nations have been given power by the serpent, and the Pope has a very important role in the leadership, the direction that the world is currently heading in. Now, also, I want to look at another section here in this document, and this article. And these are the driving forces, the catalyst that is causing these things to be occurring at the moment. Now it says Pope Francis has already warned us of these three self-destructive trends, right? And the first one he says is unsustainable global warming and climate change on planet Earth. And this is one of the pivotal talking points now, since Agenda 21 is about sustainability and also climate change, and how this mission we have to cut down and stop production of many things and stop using fossil fuels. But you see, the reason being is it is unsustainable, and it really is related to this model, this capitalistic model that they have built upon the earth. And the second one here, it says the Pope says the global economy is near collapse as inequality increases, fueling revolutions. Now remember, before this pandemic occurred, there was much uprising and civil unrest all around the world due to this inequality, people losing jobs, and it's all really connected to what is currently being released in the world with it is this fourth industrial revolution. I'll talk about that in a moment. But you see, these things are already currently happening, and it's all about problem, reaction, solution. So they already know about this, so this is a reason for this. Now also, this third one, the Earth's natural resources will be unable to feed the 10 billion people living in 2050. And he says that the three go hand in hand, merge with trigger mechanisms cross-linked to ignite simultaneously. So you see, the Pope has been given this power by the serpent to make things happen. Now really, in summary, we see this unsustainable global warming and climate change. And whether you believe this is engineered or not, it is really the serpent who is behind this. And also bear in mind that we are now at the end of time, when judgments are coming upon the earth by righteous judgment and decree by the Mighty One. Now also this global economy, this capitalistic model where money is just being printed and the world is in so much debt, and we see this cannot be sustained. And of course, the Earth's natural resources such as food is failing and cannot feed everyone. And this is partly driven by what they claim climate change, natural disasters such as flooding, but also through direct engineered events such as destruction of food crops and so forth. But you see, these three pivotal, these three are colliding, and rightly so, they are going to ignite. So we see now that this new world that the serpent has sold to the least is really linked directly to this fourth industrial revolution, which will unleash the vices of the serpent, such as advances in technology, such as quantum computers, and of course artificial intelligence, which is really coming from the spiritual realm, and it is all based on deceptions. Now, through this implementation of artificial intelligence, we're going to see so many transformations upon the earth. We're going to see more robotics, automation, and technological changes to do with neurosciences, where we're having this merger of biology and technology with the goals of connecting mankind to the image of the beast. And this is really about, when it talks about the image of the beast, it's really talking about the mind of the serpent, meaning the mind. And we'll see amongst other agendas, such as the reduction of humankind and the complete and utter control over the human mind. Now, unfortunately, this new revolution has staggering impacts for humanity as a whole and will accumulate in the complete decimation of society, fundamentally destroying everything, such as the economy, businesses, jobs. Literally every aspect of this capitalistic society will be obliterated. They use terms such as build back better, and in their words, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. Now that's a very bold statement to make. But really, when you look at what they are trying to achieve, it can only have one outcome, and it is exactly as the words of Elohim declares, no flesh would remain. Now, that final beast, remember, those feet mixed with iron and clay will never be united. And think about this. How can technology, metals, such as iron oxide, these sort of nanotechnologies, these compositions of metal, how can they merge with the biology, with the human body? And can really anything good come from it? They are clearly not compatible. Now, nanoparticles are submicron scale entities made of pure metals such as platinum or silver, zinc, iron, thallium. Now, here's the wisdom of Elohim. It talked about those feet mixed with iron and clay. Iron symbolizing, of course, metals, and clay symbolizing humankind. That truly is amazing. To achieve their outcomes, the elites have engineered COVID-19. Now, COVID really stands for Certificate of Vaccination, but really the hidden meaning here is your identity, and it's really about your identity. And this 19 is a code word for artificial intelligence. And we see this Hegelian dialectic at work here, which is problem, reaction, solution. And the problem is this global warming, this Earth's destruction and disasters, this world debt due to capitalism, and resources and inequality, such as the rich versus the poor. We see that all this is unsustainable. And this is what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. And this is a strategy to get the world into the fourth industrial revolution. Now, this is also a well-oiled and planned event ahead of time, and many, many years in the making. Take, for example, Claydex in 2018. You had Event 201 1 year before the event. All organized, of course, by the World Economic Forum, who are the ones who are spearheading this fourth industrial revolution. We have the World Health Organization, the CDC, Johns Hopkins, the Rockefeller Foundation, with their drill-down, lockstep approach on totalitarian government control of every aspect of human life. And of course, we have the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation. We see all the exact same players in this real pandemic. Now, to achieve their goals, and with multiple objectives at stake here, their plan is very obvious. Through this mass inoculations of mRNA and this nanotech, one, to reduce the world's populations, as clearly stated on the Georgia Guidestones, and two, to control, manipulate, and the complete enslavement of the remainder of humanity into what they propose as centralized megacities or smart grids. Now, the reduction of the world's population, well, many people have advocated this, such as Prince Philip in 1984, Bill Gates, of course, you had Ted Turner, and even Boris Johnson's father, among many people of these leaders around the world, because they see that overpopulation is one of the world's biggest issues, and it is to do with resources. But it's really more so around this model of this greed model of system that they have developed that has brought about this inequality, and people are revolting, and they have a plan to deal with this. Now, also other evidence to support, there is going to be depopulation. Well, the Deagle website, which has now since been shut down, forecasts for the same years as the World Bank has declared this project COVID-19 will run through until the years 2025, the same year that Deagle forecast that there would be a reduction of the world's population. So this year, 2025, is a very important year. And also the British government have also ordered mass deaths to be declared for around those years. So many people are going to be dying in those coming years. Now, there are many mind control patents out there, and this is clearly a strategy to do with taking human control of the human mind. So you can see that is one of the strategies here. And there are many references there of people that speak about this, such as Charles M. Lieber on nanosciences and what it can be used for. Of course, you have that VMAT2 gene, Dr. Dean Hammer, and I'll put some patents up here as well, but that is clearly what is going on here. Now, where does the mark come into play? Well, herein is where we have ID 2020 and its connection to patent 060606. So this is a patent that Microsoft have taken out where they are talking clearly about how your body will be connected to the likes of big currency or cryptocurrencies, because you see, it's all digital. This new world system is all digital and biotechnology, and your body will be your ID, and it's all going to be for your DNA. Now, that's quite amazing when you think about all these things, but that's really what is happening. And we want to see more and more push towards this vaccine passports, which is really linked to your ID 2020. So they want the whole world to take this identity, which is really your body. You are being ID'd, and it is through these inoculations on what they're actually putting in your body, which is what is going to link you to this beast. But also it is going to identify you. And in their own words, you will not be able to buy or sell unless you're connected to the beast system. And we see that this is the exact beast and the exact mark that was foretold in the word of truth. And the man who enforces the mark is the Pope, and his number is 666. now that we know who the identities of this second beast are, now this has everything to do with this world system as spoken of in the Word of Truth as Mystery Babylon. Now you know the identities of these two powers that will enforce the mark of the beast. Now let's talk about the real meaning of these words in Revelations chapter 13 verse 16. He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead. Now notice, it speaks about three tiers of society here. You have the upper class, the middle class, and the lower classes. So basically there is no exceptions. Now, the meaning of this is highly symbolic language, but it has everything to do with these two groups of people. One, those who keep the commandments of Elohim, and two, those who take the mark of the beast. Now, this mark of the beast is symbolized as receiving it in your head and or your hand. Now, firstly, your forehead symbolizes where you make your decisions and where you reason. Now, it is also your mind, meaning you have to make your mind up on this matter. Your hand is involved in the action of receiving or doing something. Now, to understand what this is speaking of and how it directly ties us back to the commandments, let's consider. We are told that by the Creator, man was warned not to hearken to the serpent, but to keep his commandments. Now, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 8, we're told, tie them to your hands and wear them on your forehead as reminders. This is speaking about the Ten Commandments, because it is through your mind that you formulate your thoughts, such as serving other Elohim, lying, deceiving, and so on. The hands lead to the action of breaking the commandments, such as killing, stealing, committing adultery, working on the Sabbath, and so on. So you see, these two things are tied closely together, and they always relate to the commandments. Now, the Creator wants to draw our attention to our actions so that we do not forget them, which is what mankind has done. Now, of course, the wisdom of Elohim, we see that this will be the same means by which the mark of the beast is given. You will believe it by reason of your mind and accept it by receiving this symbolized as the hand. And this is why this will be forced. You will be coerced to accept their mark of authority. Now, it is a real mark, and a mark is what a slave receives to show ownership. Now remember, your body is the temple. The Creator commanded us to bind His commandments on our foreheads and or our hands as reminders, symbolically to remind us that we should keep the commandments and not break them. Now, bear in mind that we are told in John 12, chapter 12, 48, He said, there is a judge for the one who rejects me and does not accept my words. The very words I have spoken will condemn them at the last day. So you see, this is what it's all about. Now, if you look at what's really happening, we see that there are these two groups of people. There are those who are really going to keep the Creator's commandments and receive the Creator's seal. Now, I want to point out something very amazing here. The mark of the beast is directly connected with the fourth industrial revolution. Now, that's everything to do with your mind, and it has to do with artificial intelligence. Now, we see that this is the final beast. There were four beasts that were to be, and we also have this beast, the mark of the beast, right? Now, on the right here, we see that it is through the fourth commandment, it reveals Elohim's seal. And what is a seal? Well, a seal is what a king has, and it typically has these three elements to it. It has the name, and in that fourth commandment, we have Jehovah Elohim, and it also has his title, the Creator, the Maker of all things, right? And it also has his territory and dominion, which is the heavens and the earth, the visible and the invisible. So you see the amazing wisdom of Elohim. You see, those two groups of people, one will be decided by those who keep the commandments, and the fourth commandment is very important because it has the seal of Elohim in it. Whereas this other group, which will receive the mark of the beast, and they'll receive it in their heads or their hands, because you see it's connected with your body, your temple, and your mind. Thank you for watching. I will now conclude on this second beast. I hope and pray that you understand why we got to this point. And in my final video, I will reveal that man had two choices from the very beginning. Now this is the wisdom of Elohim.